Welcome to Drift Off and Discover, where gentle histories help you settle. Settle into a comfortable position and let the day begin to soften around you. Before we begin, a brief note for your safety. Please do not listen to this wander through history while driving or operating machinery. Only listen when you're somewhere you can relax safely and completely. Imagine a quiet room where the light is warm and gentle, the kind of light that seems to rest on every surface without urgency. The air is still. The world outside feels distant. In this calm space, we begin a slow journey into the story of a small companion that has floated through childhood memories and peaceful evenings for more than a century. The simple, familiar, quietly joyful rubber duck. It is easy to think of the rubber duck as something modern, something that simply appeared one day in bathroom shelves and warm evening baths. Yet its story stretches far beyond the bright yellow figure we know today. It reaches into ancient traditions, early experiments with natural materials, and the evolving relationship between people and water. As you listen, allow the pace to slow. Let each detail settle like warm water around your shoulders. This is a gentle story meant to drift rather than rush. Before the first rubber duck ever bobbed in a bath, people were already fascinated by floating objects. In ancient river cultures, children played with carved wooden birds that drifted on the surface of calm water. These early toys were simple, shaped by hand, smoothed by time. Some were placed in shallow pools. Others were carried along the edges of lakes. They were not rubber, and they were not yellow, but they carried the same quiet delight that the duck would one day offer. The pleasure of watching something float peacefully, responding to the water with soft movements. Imagine a child in ancient Egypt holding a small wooden duck carved from a pale piece of wood. The sun is warm. The Nile moves with a slow and steady rhythm. The child places the duck on the surface and watches it drift. The moment is simple, yet it carries a sense of wonder that has echoed across thousands of years. The floating bird becomes a companion in play, a tiny presence that moves with the water and invites the mind to wander. Centuries later, far across the world, another discovery would shape the future of toys forever. In the rainforests of Central and South America, the sap of the rubber tree was collected by indigenous communities who understood its remarkable properties. When the milky sap dried, it formed a material that stretched and bounced. It was unlike anything else in the world. Explorers who encountered it were astonished. They pressed it between their fingers. They watched it return to its shape. It felt alive. This natural material would eventually travel across oceans and inspire inventors, scientists, and toy makers. It would be shaped into early balls, waterproof layers, and curious objects that fascinated people who had never seen anything like it. And in time, it would give rise to the small floating figure that would become a symbol of comfort and calm. Picture a quiet workshop in the 19th century. The scent of warm rubber fills the air. A lamp glows softly, casting gentle shadows across the room. A craftsman pours liquid rubber into a simple mold, shaped like a small bird. The material cools, the shape emerges. It is firm at first, not yet the soft and squeezable form we know today, but it is the beginning, a small step toward the floating companion that would one day drift through countless baths around the world. As you breathe slowly, imagine that early bird resting on a wooden table. It is simple, it is quiet, it is waiting for the next chapter of its story, and so are we. Let your breath settle into a slow and steady rhythm as we drift deeper into the story. Imagine the world in the early 19th century, a time when science and curiosity were beginning to reshape everyday life. Factories hummed with new inventions. Workshops glowed with lamplight as craftsmen experimented with unfamiliar materials. Among these discoveries was a strange and promising substance that would one day give life to the gentle floating companion we know so well. This substance was natural rubber. It arrived in Europe and North America in small blocks and curious samples carried across oceans by explorers. People who touched it for the first time were fascinated. It stretched, it bounced, it resisted water. It felt unlike anything they had ever held. Yet it was also unpredictable. It softened in heat. It cracked in cold. It needed refinement before it could become part of daily life. Imagine a quiet laboratory filled with the scent of warm oils and cooling metal. A scientist stands at a wooden table, turning a piece of rubber in his hands. He presses it gently. He watches it spring back. He wonders what it might become. The room is silent except for the faint ticking of a clock and the soft crackle of a nearby stove. In this stillness, the future of rubber begins to take shape. As the years passed, inventors discovered ways to stabilize rubber, making it stronger and more reliable. This transformation opened the door to countless new uses: waterproof boots, elastic bands, early toys that delighted children with their springy texture. Rubber became a material of possibility, ready to be shaped into forms that were both practical and playful. Toy makers were among the first to see its potential for delight. They imagined objects that could be squeezed, stretched, and shaped without breaking. They imagined toys that could float on water without becoming heavy or damaged. They imagined small creatures that could accompany children in their daily routines, bringing comfort through their gentle presence. Picture a small workshop where a craftsman pours liquid rubber into a simple mold shaped like a bird. The mold cools slowly. When it is opened, a small figure emerges. It is firm and solid, not yet the soft and squeezable form we know today. But it is a beginning, a quiet step toward the floating companion that would one day drift through countless baths around the world. These early rubber birds were not yet ducks. They were often shaped like generic waterfowl, with rounded bodies and simple features. Their purpose was not to float, but to be held. Children enjoyed their smooth texture and gentle resilience. Parents appreciated their durability. The toys became small treasures in homes where play was simple and imaginative. Imagine a child sitting near a window on a quiet afternoon. The light is soft. The air is warm. The child holds a small rubber bird, pressing it gently and watching it return to its shape. The moment is peaceful. The toy becomes a companion in stillness, a small presence that invites calm. These early creations marked the first breath of what would eventually become the rubber duck. A material had been discovered. A shape had been imagined. A gentle idea had begun to form. The story was ready to drift forward, carried by curiosity and the quiet joy of floating objects. Let your breath soften as we drift into the moment when rubber toys first learned to float. The world had already embraced rubber as a curious and useful material, but it had not yet discovered the quiet joy of a toy that could rest on the surface of warm water. That discovery would come slowly, shaped by experimentation, patience, and the simple pleasure of watching something drift. Early rubber toys were solid. They were firm and heavy, shaped to be held rather than placed in water. They bounced, they stretched, they delighted children with their resilience, but they did not float. They sank with a soft thud, disappearing beneath the surface. Toy makers wondered if there might be a way to create something lighter, something that could rest on water the way wooden toys once had. Imagine a small workshop filled with the scent of warm rubber and cooling molds. A craftsman stands beside a table, examining a newly formed toy. It is shaped like a bird, smooth and rounded, but it is too heavy to float. He presses it gently, feeling the firmness beneath his fingers. He wonders if a hollow form might behave differently, if air, captured inside the toy, might give it the buoyancy it needs. This idea begins to take shape. Craftsmen experiment with molds that leave space inside the toy. They pour liquid rubber carefully, allowing it to coat the interior walls before the excess is drained away. When the mold is opened, a hollow figure emerges. It is lighter, it feels different in the hand, and when it is placed in water, something remarkable happens. It floats. Picture that moment. A small basin filled with clear water. A newly formed rubber bird resting on the surface. It drifts gently, responding to the slightest movement of the water. The craftsman watches with quiet satisfaction. The toy has come to life in a new way. It has learned to float. These early floating toys were simple. Their shapes were rounded and smooth. Their features were minimal. They did not yet have the bright colours or cheerful expressions that would one day define the rubber duck. But they carried a quiet charm. Children placed them in wash basins and shallow tubs, watching them drift with soft fascination. The toys became companions in moments of calm, turning ordinary baths into gentle scenes of play. Imagine a child sitting in a warm bath at the end of a long day. The water glows softly in the evening light. A small floating bird drifts nearby, moving with the slow rhythm of the water. The child reaches out and gives it a gentle tap. The bird glides away, leaving a tiny ripple behind it. The moment is peaceful. The toy becomes part of the soothing ritual of evening, a small presence that brings comfort through its quiet movement. These early floating toys were the ancestors of the rubber duck. They carried the first hints of the gentle companionship that would one day become beloved around the world. The story was beginning to take shape, carried forward by curiosity, creativity, and the simple joy of watching something float. Let your breath settle into a slow and steady rhythm as we drift into the moment when the rubber duck began to take on the familiar form we know today. The world was moving into the early 20th century, a time when new materials, new colours, and new ideas were beginning to shape everyday objects. Among these changes was a quiet transformation that would turn a simple floating toy into a symbol of comfort and joy. Until this point, most rubber toys were natural in colour. They were shades of brown or cream, reflecting the material from which they were made. But as synthetic rubber and new dyes became available, toy makers began to experiment with brighter tones. They wanted toys that felt cheerful, toys that felt warm, toys that invited a smile the moment they were seen. Imagine a small workshop filled with jars of powdered pigments, reds, blues, greens, and a bright sunny yellow that seemed to glow even in the dim light of the room. A craftsman dips a brush into the pigment and mixes it with liquid rubber. The colour spreads through the mixture like sunlight through water. It feels warm, it feels friendly, it feels right. When the first yellow ducks emerged from their moulds, they looked different from anything that had come before. Their rounded shapes seemed even softer in this warm colour. Their small beaks and gentle eyes appeared more expressive. The yellow made them feel alive in a quiet, comforting way. Toy makers noticed the reaction immediately. Children reached for the yellow ducks first. Parents smiled when they saw them. The colour created an emotional response that no other shade had achieved. Picture a child sitting beside a warm bath. The water reflects the soft glow of evening light. A small yellow duck floats nearby, its colour bright against the calm surface. The child reaches out and touches it gently. The duck drifts away, leaving a tiny ripple behind it. The moment feels peaceful. The duck becomes part of the soothing rhythm of the evening. The yellow duck soon became the standard. Its colour suggested sunlight and warmth. It felt friendly and safe. It brought a sense of joy to the quiet moments of daily life. Even adults found themselves drawn to it, feeling a small spark of comfort when they saw its cheerful form. As the years passed, the yellow duck became more than a toy. It became a symbol, a reminder of childhood baths, a reminder of gentle evenings, a reminder of the simple pleasure of watching something float peacefully on warm water. The duck had found its identity, shaped not only by material and design, but by the quiet emotional response it inspired. Imagine a shelf in a quiet home. On it sits a single yellow duck. The room is still, the light is soft. The duck glows gently in the warm air. It is simple, it is familiar, it is comforting, and its story is still drifting forward. Let your breath fall into an easy rhythm as we drift into the moment when the rubber duck found its voice. Not a loud voice, not a startling one, just a soft, playful sound that carried warmth through quiet rooms and gentle evening baths. The squeak. Before this moment, rubber ducks were silent companions. They floated, they drifted, they brought comfort through their presence alone. But as toy makers refined their methods, they discovered that a small pocket of air inside the duck could create a gentle sound when pressed. It was a simple idea, yet it changed the way people connected with the toy. Imagine a craftsman holding a newly formed duck in his hands. The surface is smooth, the colour is warm. He presses the body gently and a soft sound escapes. It is not sharp, it is not harsh. It is a tiny note of cheerfulness, like a whisper of joy. The craftsman smiles. The duck has learned to speak in its own quiet way. Children responded instantly. The sound became part of the ritual of bath time. A small squeeze, a tiny squeak, a moment of delight that echoed lightly through the room. The sound blended with the soft splash of water and the gentle hum of evening routines. It became a familiar part of childhood, a sound that brought comfort and reassurance. Picture a child sitting in a warm bath, the water glowing softly in the fading light. A small yellow duck floats nearby. The child lifts it, presses it gently, and hears the soft squeak. The sound brings a smile. The duck returns to the water, drifting peacefully. The moment is simple, yet it carries a sense of warmth that lingers long after the bath is over. Adults found comfort in the sound as well. It reminded them of early years, of gentle evenings, of the quiet rhythm of family life. The squeak became a tiny echo of memory, a sound that carried the softness of childhood into the present. Even now, hearing a rubber duck squeak can bring back a wave of nostalgia, a reminder of warm towels, calm rooms, and the peaceful glow of bathroom lights. The squeak also gave the duck personality. It made the toy feel alive in a gentle, playful way. It invited interaction. It encouraged imagination. It turned the duck into more than a floating figure. It became a companion with a tiny voice that spoke of comfort and joy. Imagine a quiet bathroom at the end of a long day. The water is still. The air is warm. A single duck floats on the surface. You lift it gently. You press it once. The soft squeak fills the room. It is a small sound, but it carries a sense of peace, a reminder that even the simplest things can bring comfort. The duck had found its voice, and the world grew a little softer because of it. Let your breath soften as we drift into a chapter where the rubber duck steps beyond the quiet world of baths and warm water. It enters a different space, a space shaped by imagination, creativity, and the gentle playfulness that artists often seek when the world feels too heavy. The duck, simple and familiar, becomes a symbol that invites smiles and softens the edges of daily life. As the 20th century unfolded, artists began to notice the charm of the rubber duck. Its rounded shape, its warm yellow colour, and its gentle expression made it a perfect subject for creative exploration. It was instantly recognizable, yet simple enough to be reimagined in countless ways. Painters placed it in surreal landscapes. Photographers used it to create scenes of quiet humor. Sculptors enlarged it to monumental scale, letting it drift across lakes and harbors like a floating beacon of joy. Imagine standing beside a calm waterfront at dusk. The sky is painted with soft shades of lavender and gold. The air is cool and still. In the distance, a giant yellow duck floats slowly across the water. Its reflection ripples gently beneath it. People gather along the shore, some smiling, some laughing softly, others simply watching in peaceful silence. The duck becomes a shared moment of wonder, a reminder that even in a busy world, there is room for simple joy. The duck also found its way into stories and illustrations. It appeared in picture books as a gentle companion. It appeared in animated scenes as a symbol of comfort. It appeared in playful advertisements that used its familiar shape to evoke warmth and nostalgia. The duck became part of the cultural landscape, drifting quietly through the imagination of millions. Picture a child drawing a scene with crayons on a quiet afternoon. The paper is filled with soft colours. A small yellow duck floats on a blue pond beneath a warm sun. The drawing is simple, yet it carries a sense of peace. The duck becomes a symbol of safety and happiness, a small figure that brings comfort even in the world of imagination. Adults too found themselves drawn to the duck in creative ways. Some placed it on their desks as a reminder to pause and breathe. Others used it in playful photographs that brought a moment of lightness to their day. The duck became a gentle muse, inspiring creativity through its simplicity. Imagine a quiet studio where an artist sits before a blank canvas. The room is still, the light is soft. On a nearby table rests a small yellow duck. The artist looks at it and feels a sense of calm. The duck becomes a starting point, a spark of inspiration, a reminder that creativity can grow from the simplest of shapes. Through art and imagination, the rubber duck drifted far beyond the bath. It became a symbol of joy, a companion in creativity, and a gentle reminder that the world can be soft and playful. Let your breath fall into a slow and steady rhythm as we drift into one of the most remarkable chapters in the story of the rubber duck. A chapter where a simple floating toy became an unexpected traveller, carried not by hands or imagination, but by the vast and patient movement of the sea. In the early 1990s, a shipping container filled with thousands of floating toys was accidentally released into the Pacific Ocean during a storm. Among the toys were many small ducks, each bright and buoyant, each ready to float wherever the water carried them. What followed was a journey that no one could have predicted, a quiet drift across oceans that would last for years. Imagine one of these ducks resting on the surface of the open sea. The sky stretches endlessly above it. The water moves with a slow and steady pulse. There is no sound except the gentle whisper of waves. The duck drifts without effort, carried by currents that have travelled the world for centuries. It is a tiny figure in a vast blue landscape, yet it moves with calm confidence, rising and falling with the rhythm of the ocean. Scientists began to notice these drifting toys as they washed ashore in distant places. Some arrived on the beaches of North America. Others reached the shores of Australia. A few even travelled through icy waters and appeared near the Arctic. Each duck carried clues about the movement of the sea, helping researchers understand the paths of currents that circle the globe. Beachcombers found them as well. People walking along quiet shores would spot a small yellow figure resting among shells and seaweed. They would pick it up, surprised and delighted by the unexpected visitor. The duck became a tiny treasure, a reminder that the world is connected in ways we often forget. Picture a quiet beach at sunrise. The sky glows with soft shades of pink and gold. The waves roll gently onto the sand. A small duck rests at the water's edge, its colour bright against the pale shore. Someone walking along the beach notices it, bends down and lifts it gently. The moment feels almost magical. A simple toy has travelled across oceans to arrive in a place it was never meant to be. These travelling ducks became symbols of curiosity and wonder. They reminded people that even the smallest objects can carry stories across great distances. They reminded scientists that the world's waters are always moving, always shifting, always connected. And they reminded everyone who found one that the world is full of gentle surprises. The duck had become a global traveller, drifting quietly through the vastness of the sea, carried by currents older than memory. Let your breath ease into a soft and steady flow as we drift into a chapter where the rubber duck becomes more than a toy, more than a traveller, more than a cheerful figure floating on warm water. It becomes a symbol of comfort, a small presence that brings reassurance in moments when the world feels uncertain. As the duck grew in popularity, people began to notice the emotional effect it had on children. Its gentle expression, its rounded shape, and its warm yellow colour created a sense of safety. It became a companion during bath time, a moment when children were surrounded by water and needed something familiar to hold or watch. The duck offered that familiarity. It offered calm. Hospitals began to notice this as well. In some places, small ducks were given to children who felt anxious or afraid. The duck became a tiny anchor, something soft and friendly to hold during difficult moments. It did not speak, it did not move, yet its presence brought comfort. It reminded children of warm baths, gentle evenings, and the quiet rhythm of home. Imagine a child sitting in a hospital bed, the room filled with soft beeping and distant footsteps. A small yellow duck rests beside them. The child picks it up, presses it gently, and hears the soft squeak. The sound is familiar. It brings a small smile. The duck becomes a companion in a place that feels unfamiliar, a reminder that comfort can be found even in unexpected moments. Charities also embraced the duck as a symbol of kindness. Community events began to use rubber ducks in playful races along rivers and streams. People gathered to watch thousands of ducks drift together, each one representing a donation or a message of support. The sight of so many bright yellow figures floating side by side created a sense of unity, a sense of shared purpose, a sense of joy. Picture a gentle river on a warm afternoon. The water moves with a slow and steady rhythm. Thousands of small ducks drift together, their yellow forms glowing in the sunlight. Families gather along the banks, smiling as the ducks float past. The moment feels light and peaceful. The ducks become symbols of generosity, each one carrying a quiet message of care. In homes, hospitals, and communities, the rubber duck became more than a toy. It became a reminder of comfort, kindness, and the gentle ways people support one another. A small figure with a soft presence, drifting quietly through the moments that matter most. Let your breath drift into an easy rhythm as we move into a chapter shaped by stillness. Evening has always been a time when the world softens. Light fades, voices quieten, the pace of the day loosens its grip. In this gentle space, the rubber duck becomes more than a toy. It becomes part of the quiet ritual that guides the mind toward rest. Imagine a bathroom lit by a single warm lamp. The glow settles softly on the walls, creating a calm and steady atmosphere. The water in the bath is warm and still, except for the slow movement of a small yellow duck drifting across the surface. The room feels peaceful. The day feels distant. The duck becomes a companion in the slow drift towards sleep. There is something soothing about the way the duck moves. It does not rush. It does not resist the water. It simply follows the gentle currents, turning slightly as the surface shifts. This quiet movement invites the mind to slow down, to breathe more deeply, to let go of the noise that gathers throughout the day. Picture yourself lowering into warm water at the end of a long evening. The surface ripples softly around you. The air carries the faint scent of soap. A small duck floats nearby, its yellow form glowing in the warm light. You watch it drift. You feel your breath deepen. The world outside the room begins to fade. The duck becomes part of the transition from wakefulness to rest. For children, this moment becomes part of a nightly routine. The duck appears at the same time each day, offering familiarity and comfort. It helps guide the mind from playfulness to calm. It becomes a gentle signal that the day is ending and that rest is near. For adults, the duck can carry a different kind of comfort. It becomes a reminder of early years, of warm baths and soft evenings, of the quiet rhythm of home. Even if it sits on a shelf rather than floating in water, its presence brings a sense of peace, a reminder that rest is important, that calmness is something to be welcomed. Imagine a quiet room at night. The lights are low, the air is still. A single duck rests on the edge of the bath, its shape simple and familiar. It does not move, yet it brings a sense of ease, a reminder that the world can be gentle, a reminder that evening is a time for softness. Let your breath settle into a soft and steady rhythm as we drift into a chapter shaped by quiet thought. The rubber duck, simple and familiar, has a way of inviting reflection. It does not speak, it does not move on its own, yet its gentle presence encourages the mind to slow down, to wander, to rest. Imagine a quiet room in the late afternoon. The light is warm and golden, settling softly on every surface. A small yellow duck rests on the edge of a bath or sits on a shelf nearby. It is still. It is peaceful. Its rounded shape and gentle expression create a sense of ease. You look at it, and without effort, your thoughts begin to soften. The duck becomes a companion in these moments of reflection. It reminds you of warm water, calm evenings, and the simple comfort of floating objects. It carries memories of childhood, of gentle routines, of the quiet rhythm of home. Even if you are far from those early years, the duck brings a sense of familiarity that helps the mind settle. Picture yourself sitting in a quiet room with a cup of warm tea. The world outside is busy, but inside everything is still. The air is soft, the light is gentle. On a nearby shelf sits a small yellow duck. You notice its shape, its colour, its calm presence. It does not demand attention, it simply exists, offering a quiet reminder that rest is important. For some people, the duck becomes a small anchor during stressful moments. It sits on a desk, offering a moment of calm during a long day. It rests near a window, catching the soft morning light. It becomes a symbol of balance, a reminder to pause, to breathe, to let the mind drift for a moment. Imagine a gentle breeze moving through an open window. The curtains sway softly. The room feels peaceful. The duck sits quietly, unchanged by the movement around it. Its stillness becomes a comfort, a reminder that even in a world that shifts and changes, there can be small moments of steadiness. The duck becomes a companion for reflection, a simple presence that helps the mind slow down and settle into calm. Let your breath soften as we drift into a chapter shaped by quiet understanding. The rubber duck, simple and familiar, carries a gentle kind of wisdom. It does not teach through words, it teaches through presence, through movement, through the calm way it rests on the surface of water. Imagine a warm bath at the end of a long day. The water is still, except for the slow rise and fall created by your breathing. A small yellow duck floats nearby. It moves only when the water moves. It never forces its path. It never struggles against the gentle currents. It simply follows the natural rhythm around it. There is a quiet lesson in this, a reminder that sometimes the best way to move through the world is to let go of tension and allow yourself to drift for a moment, to trust the water beneath you, to trust the rhythm of your own breath. The duck becomes a symbol of this softness, a companion that shows how calmness can be a form of strength. Picture the duck resting on the surface. The water shifts slightly, and the duck turns with it. The movement is slow and effortless. It does not resist. It does not cling to stillness. It simply adapts. This gentle response invites the mind to loosen its grip on the day, to release the thoughts that cling too tightly, to float. For children, this quiet wisdom appears in simple ways. They press the duck beneath the surface and watch it rise again. They see how it always returns to the top, steady and patient. They learn without realizing it that resilience can be gentle, that rising does not need to be forceful, that calmness can carry you upward. For adults, the lesson becomes deeper. The duck becomes a reminder that life does not always need to be pushed or hurried, that rest is not a weakness, that drifting for a moment can bring clarity. The duck becomes a small guide, showing that peace can be found in the simplest movements. Imagine a quiet room where the only sound is the soft ripple of water. A small duck floats nearby, steady and calm. Its presence invites you to breathe more slowly, to let your thoughts settle, to drift gently toward rest. The wisdom of floating is simple, yet it carries a deep and peaceful truth. Let your breath fall into a slow and peaceful rhythm as we drift into the final chapter. The story of the rubber duck has carried us across centuries, through workshops and oceans, through childhood memories and gentle moments of reflection. Now we arrive at the quiet place where the duck truly belongs, a place shaped by stillness, warmth, and the soft glow of evening. Imagine a bathroom at the end of a long day. The light is low and warm, resting gently on the walls. The water in the bath is calm, holding the last traces of heat. A small yellow duck floats on the surface, moving only when the water moves. Its presence is simple. Its presence is steady. It brings a sense of ease that settles into the room like a soft blanket. There is something comforting about the way the duck waits without expectation. It does not ask for attention. It does not change with the passing years. It simply remains, offering a quiet reminder that rest is important. That calmness can be found in the smallest of moments, that even at the end of a long day, there is space for softness. Picture yourself leaning back in warm water. The surface ripples gently around you. The air carries the faint scent of soap. The duck drifts nearby, its yellow form glowing softly in the dim light. You watch it float. You feel your breath deepen. The world outside the room fades into silence. The duck becomes part of the stillness, a companion in the slow drift towards sleep. For many people, the duck becomes a symbol of this peaceful transition, a reminder that the day can end gently, that the mind can soften, that rest can arrive quietly, like a small figure drifting across calm water. Imagine the room growing quieter, the light dimming, the water settling into stillness. The duck floats in the center of the calm, steady and peaceful. It is a simple presence, yet it carries a sense of comfort that lingers long after the water has cooled. The story of the rubber duck ends here, in the quiet of evening, where warmth meets stillness and the mind drifts softly toward rest. Thank you so much for sharing this quiet moment with me. If you'd like more bedtime stories like this, then please subscribe now. And if there's a topic you'd love to hear as you drift off, let me know in the comments. Sleep well and be safe.